Good to vach, everybody. So I'll tell you, Maisa, one of the great Tzadikim his name was Rav Yussie Zakutinsky, the great Tzadikim. He was known for his Ahavas Yisrael and his just like overflowing kind heart. That's what he was known for. And so, story goes that it was once an Erev Shabbos, and he's home with his Rebbetzin, getting ready for Shabbos, and there's a knock at the door. And the Rebbetzin goes to answer the door, and it's a beggar. It's a poor person, but it's not a Jewish poor person. It's a non-Jewish person who's begging, who's poor. And it's interesting. Usually, when a poor person comes, they ask for money, or they don't ask anything specific, so you can give money. But in this case, this beggar asked for something specific. He said that he wants some challah. He always, maybe he was a little bit off to begin with, but he said that he's hungry, and instead of just having any food, he knows that it's before Shabbos, and every Jewish home has challah. He had it once before; it was delicious. So he's asking for bread, but specifically challah. Okay, that's what this person is asking for. So the Rebbetzin is thinking to herself, listen, if this was a Jewish beggar, then it would be without a question, but a non-Jew. So she goes to the kitchen to see what she has, and she realizes that all she has are just the 2 challahs that she prepared for that meal, for Friday night. Shabbos day, the Rebbe was going to be having a tish by the shul, so they didn't have challahs at home for that. So all they had were the 2 challahs for the house. And the halach is, even if the Rebbetzin decided to cut a piece, and the halach is by Shabbos, you have to have 2 whole challahs, 2 whole loaves in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Lechem Mishnah. So she wasn't sure what to do. So she was going to go back to the person and say, listen, I apologize, we don't have any challahs here. And she'll give some money instead. Rav Yussie Zakutinsky, in the meantime, is in the other room, hears this conversation and realizes what's happening. So he goes over to the Rebbe and he says to his wife, it's okay, you could give him a challah. He said you could cut the challah in half and give him half of it. No blood will come from it. In other words, you cut the challah, it's not going to bleed. No blood is going to come from it. It's okay. You could give this guy half a challah. It's fine. Okay, that's what the Rebbe said. That's what the Rebbetzin did. She cut the challah in half, gave this person half a challah, and that's it. That was the end of that part of the story. Okay, weeks go by, months go by, years go by. That was the story. Fine. Happens to be years later, Rav Yussie Zakutinsky is traveling, and he was traveling with a small group of chassidim going to a particular location. And those days, especially that part of the world, traveling was extremely dangerous, and you would have bandits, you would have gangsters, just sort of kidnapping people, unfortunately, in the highway and ransoming them to their communities for money. And so this is what happened. Rav Yussie Zakutinsky is traveling with a group of chassidim, and they're attacked on the highway by this group of gangsters, of thugs, of bandits, and they're all tied up, and they're brought to the leader of the gang to then be sold for ransom to the Jewish community, which they knew that the Yidden are going to pay any money for any Yid, especially someone that looks like a rabbinic figure. And so they bring all the chassidim, especially, and the Varka himself, into the room with the head gangster. And once the head gangster is standing there and sees Rav Yussie Zakutinsky, he says immediately, let them go. Let them go. What happened? So Rav Yussie Zakutinsky noticed this person, this head gangster, and after looking at him for a second, remembered that this was that poor beggar that years before came to his house and asked for some challah, and his wife cut the challah in half and gave him half a challah. That eventually, I guess, he eventually became the head of this gang. And so by seeing Rav Yussie Zakutinsky, he told his chevra over there, he said, this Jew, he saved my life when I needed saving, so we're going to let him go as well. So Rav Yussie Zakutinsky and his chassidim continue on their way. By the time they get back home, so Rav Yussie Zakutinsky turns to his Rebbetzin and to tell the Maisa what happened. So he says to his Rebbetzin, remember years ago, there was a case of where someone came to the door on Erev Shabbos, a non-Jew, and he had a funny request. He asked for challah, and you weren't sure what to do. And I said, listen, cut the challah in half. No blood is going to come from it. So Rav Yussie Zakutinsky said to his Rebbetzin, he said, listen, even when I said that, I meant it as like a joke, like he cut it. It's not going to bleed. But even me, I didn't know what I meant. But it turns out that the words that came out of my mouth were taka true. No blood will come from it. Because of this act of cutting the challah and giving it to that nebuch non-Jew, that poor person, no blood, no damage, no chas v'shalom, danger is going to come because of that particular ma'aseh. So there's so many things you can take from that. I mean, first of all, just the kindness and the good-heartedness of Rav Yussie Zakutinsky, not just to a poor person, but to a poor non-Jewish person, and to the extent that he sacrificed his lechem mishnah for that. And also you see how the Rebbeinu Shalom always plants seeds. You don't know what Yeshua a person needs years later. But the Rebbeinu Shalom gives you an opportunity to do chesed, to do a mitzvah right now. And so even if you don't immediately see the payers, you don't see the fruit, you don't see how this act of chesed is going to save you one day or change your life, we have to be talking in emunah that we plant seeds. Zrei tzedakos, we plant tzedakah, we plant chesed. Matzmiach Yeshua's come. Might be later, might be years later. We might realize to put the dots together, like in this story. We might not realize it. But to believe that every act of chesed we do is planting seeds that eventually comes and produces the pairs of Yeshua. Hashem should bless us that this week should be a week of Zrei tzedakos, Matzmiach Yeshua's. We should all be able to be zeich in the position of giving and helping other Yidden. We should be zeich to have a week full of shefa, bracha, and atzlacha. To be exalted, Tzadikim, Amen.